Call this meeting order. All stand, face the flag for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Roll call. R.J. Donovan.
Here.
Brett Luther.
Present.
Tim Yoakum's here. Approval of minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approval of claims.
Make a motion to approve claims minus the forensic medical status for $8,800 until that bill can be validated.
Is that $8,000 bill for the coroner?
Yes, it is.
And he hasn't validated that bill yet? Okay. I'll second the motion.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have a comment. This affects our office when he's not paying these. These are all the way back from April. He's been talked to. I've talked to him about how to put the bills together, how to do them. And when they're calling our office and complaining that they're not getting paid, this becomes a problem for us. It's not just right now. It's every day. Every month they're calling saying we're not getting paid, we're not getting paid.
Okay.
So.
We will get that resolved in the next couple of days for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So we got a we did. Approval of payroll.
Make a motion to approve payroll.
Second the motion to approve payroll.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Treasury report. What's going on?
You should have the treasurer's report in your packet. This is the interest report.
Okay.
The interest report for August was $76,179.88 for earned by the main account. That and the American Rescue Plan is part of the main account. And then below, the Trust Indiana Economic Development and Health Department, those all get to keep their income for the month. So that total was $1,058.45 for the month. And then we have a CD that I just cashed on Monday, and it earned $105.41. So there was a total interest in August of $77,343.74. And just for just to take a look at it, what the American Rescue Plan interest had earned so far since we've gotten the money, $14,650.17.
And so all that interest goes back into the general fund, and how's that split up?
Everything but Economic Development and Health Department's grant. They get those into their funds.
Do they have any questions for the treasurer?
Also, while I'm here, I want to remind everybody about the tax sale on Thursday. We started with 199 properties, and we're down to 89, and it starts at 10 a.m. in the auditorium. If you've never been, come and watch. Anything else? Thank you.
Next is public comment. Anyone that has anything to say, please come to the podium and state who you are. Okay, I'm going to pass on. We're going to change the agenda. Some people are here and they want to come and get out here quicker. We have the Thrive, John Ford, if you come up here.
Well, good morning, and thank you for giving me a few moments of your time. John Ford, Director of Business Development with Thrive West Central. Thrive West Central is the Community and Economic Development Regional Authority. We also are the area agency on aging here in the West Central region, 6-county region. So for the past 2 years, we've been working on a study, really to see where our region was going into COVID and what is happening since we're coming out. And we spent a lot of time gathering information. The report is a little over 200 pages. What we've consolidated here is kind of a summary of the key points that we found. And I just want to hit a few today. I don't want to belabor it, but you know, some of the things we found are pretty, you know, we all know, but we wanted to have them in writing, so we had a document that would help us go after our communities to go after grants and kind of give them the clear data points that are needed to be successful in grants. So one of the areas I think we all talk about often are population loss. You know, we continue as a region to lose population. We are projected to continue that slide to decrease population by 6.5% by 2050. And another interesting fact is that we found in this, our population is an aging population. We have a huge part of our population over the age of 55, and that is going to continue till 2050 to increase by almost 5%. So what, you know, that data point tells us is, you know, one of the areas to look at is to create age-friendly communities that will help folks age with dignity in place, so they don't have to go outside of the county to look for support. Another area, per capita income. We, as a region, for nearly 20 years, West Central Indiana has had the lowest per capita income at any region in the state. So that is, you know, again, one area for us to look at as a data point. The jobs that we seek, the jobs we try to bring into the community, we should be focusing on trying to bring higher wage jobs, and then supporting that effort in a number of other ways that you know, do that, like broadband, for example. If we're going to bring in higher paying jobs, we need to make sure that we have communities that have broadband access. Child care, another data point we found in this study is this region really lacks child care and quality child care. For example, Vermilion County has one child care facility recognized by the state. Some counties in our region don't have any. So if we're going to continue to attract the major employers and try to get expansions from the likes of Elanco, we've got to think about housing, child care, these types of things, broadband. So it's really what you know, we've tried to point out in this study. Again, there's a lot of points in here, and just wanted to present them. And then if you have any questions, in the back is a way to get a hold of us, and we're happy to meet individually or come back with any specific questions you might have. But I'm also happy to take questions now.
One of the things, I was at the board of directors meeting last night with Thrive, and they put the bridge on here and put Vermilion County on as Park County's bridge. So anyway, we give credit to Park County on that part of it.
Well, I apologize. We will work on that.
Yeah. So I appreciate what you guys do. I mean, I don't know if you might want to explain what Thrive does and the services a little bit to what people here, let them know for a county. Yeah, so for Thrive West Central, community and economic development is one of our areas we work on. So that is, you know, any grants dealing at the federal, state level, local level, everything from planning to you know, implementation of grants, grant administration. We also, kind of one of our goals is to try to entice communities to plan more. As a region, we're not planning as well as other regions are, and I think that's, you know, hurt us a little bit in attracting businesses. So that's one area. We also have a transportation division within Thrive that you may remember we did help you with asset management inventory a few months back, and
we do a lot of that. We're an RPO, so we can do a lot of counts. We can help with sign inventories, culverts, things like that. And we have GIS specialists, so we can help communities with those needs. And then we're the area agency on aging. So that is a resource where our goal is to help people get the resources they need to stay in their homes longer. And then we have a transportation wing, which provides rural transportation. And I think last night there was some discussion about expansion. We've expanded over the last 2 years here in Vermilion County more, working with a few healthcare providers and providing transportation when we can. But I think we're also talking about expanding the rural transportation part here in Vermilion County in partnership with NDOT and the county.
Like when someone's released from the hospital and they're on their own power, not a wheelchair or anything like that, they can call and get a free ride home, right? Or
Yeah.
Suggested donation or something.
Yeah.
I'd like to. I think it's Ammerman that's working in the county. Is that right?
Yeah, Shelley Ammerman is one of my staffers who works on the development side.
Okay. Appreciate what you guys do in the county. It's a big help. Anybody got any questions?
You mentioned there's a lot of data points and information there. Are there solutions that go along with those data points that show where we're falling below the average or in the lower percentile
there's
anyway?
Suggestions in there and examples of different things. I mean, for one example, on the aging side, we use a case study from Alexandria, Minnesota, where they actually made it a 4 3M factories left their community, and their economic strategy coming out of that was to attract 55 and older folks that live outside of Minnesota and bring them back, because these folks had disposable income, could buy homes, be a part of the community, but then also it helped them to attract nurses, doctors, again, high wage individuals. And their population grew by 28% in the last census. And it's between Minneapolis and Fargo. I mean, it's literally in the middle of nowhere.
How do you see this being implemented into Vermilion County, by committee, by commissioners, by individual groups, or how do you proceed?
Yeah, probably all the above. I mean, we're willing to be, an asset and be available for any group, but also certainly to the commissioners and the council of programs they may want to do. Kind of look at us kind of as a neutral third party. We may not do the work, but we will help you get to that work. I mean, for good examples, in Vigo County, we're the third party helping them with the riverfront development plan. So we help with the RFP process, the process to interview the folks that are going to do the riverfront development plan, and kind of was that neutral party between the city and the county.
Are these cost-sharing programs, or is this something that is already paid in our, base fees, if you will?
Some of it is already worked into the base fees, but then some of it is, like when we did the transportation asset inventory, right? That was kind of an additional fee.
Last night was talking about the Ready Grant a little bit at the meeting. I was talking to Keller. There is different, for funding on that, the percentage is different for different entities, right? In the counties, the government entity is like 2 to 1, so it'd be like 33%. But there's different funding levels for different entities, right?
Yeah, so counties, what you said was right, and then you have universities, and then you have private funding, and the goal for private funding is 4 to 1 ratio to match.
Do you know anything about that? Is that going to be coming up this next year?
I think the first round of Ready is in the process. That's being implemented as we speak. I think there will be talk in the next session about doing another round of Ready, but also could be maybe in partnership with Ready, but also some funding to help housing. A lot of discussion about that.
The difference will be that this will be a state program as opposed to a federal program, or is that not true?
I don't think that's been decided. I think, when we initially talked about Ready, it was going to be state dollars, but then obviously there was a tranche of federal dollars we used. Personally, I would like us to use state dollars because there's less strings attached and it's not as complicated.
Thank you.
Anybody, any questions for John? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to move up broadband advisory. Luke Bosa.
Thank you. My name is Luke Basso. I'm with Katz Epper and Miller. We go by KSM. Traditionally, we're an accounting firm on one side, but we also have consultative services, advisory, and healthcare, economic development, and government, which is the practice I lead. I have Greg Landon here with me as well, and then we have Scott Rudd. Previously, I worked at the state for a few years, an advisor on economic development, infrastructure, and workforce. Then I was the chief of staff at the IEDC for about a year and a half before moving into this role. And one of the things that became clear when I was at the state, there were a lot of people who had interest, not necessarily the government's interest when I was working with them. So we started this practice to really fill gaps where we could help be an advocate for local government, state government, government adjacent organizations. And about 6 months ago, Scott and I and Greg started working together with communities and with broadband. We're not a broadband provider. We are the advocate for the communities and working with broadband. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of money that is out there for broadband with communities, but there's a lot of restrictions with it. And to goes for the broadband money, whatever county's prepared, that's whoever's going to be able to move the fastest when the money comes down. So we're working with 10 or 12 communities now, helping them set up plans, and those plans come in a variety of different ways. It could be what fiber do you have in your community already. It could be grants that are coming down the pike. It could be so simple just to make sure you're aligning your construction schedules with those companies so you can lay fiber at one time, and different things of that nature. Scott is the former broadband director for the state of Indiana, so he understands this much more from a technical perspective. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott to explain the rest.
Thank you, Luke. I actually started in my interest in broadband in a small rural county, Brown County, with a declining population, heavily aging population, very similar issues as you have. I'm also on the county council there, so we were able to really drive through some of these challenges in a very, in our case, a very unattractive place to invest in broadband pre-pandemic, before the funds were here. I think looking at your situation right now, you're kind of in the catbird seat in terms of being able to take advantage of numerous funding opportunities, including some private capital that's moved into the market that may be even able to move more quickly than the state and federal funds, which would be a wonderful thing. But so I think we could help you with engaging some of those providers. You've had quite a history with providers here, and recently I know Tim and I have had some conversations, and RJ possibly as well understands that you've had some defaults in federal funds. I don't think any of those investors are out of the game. I think we should talk to all the folks involved and have tons of experience doing that for dozens of counties across the state and beyond. And so happy to work with you, happy to take any questions as well. I know there's a lot of activity right now in the mapping space, and it's very important that your county is able to secure every single eligible location possible, because the dollars flow to eligible locations in this space. And so there's a whole effort right now underway where, for the first time in history, counties and local governments can actually review the new broadband map being done by the FCC and challenge it in cases where you disagree with coverage. Lots of activity, highly technical. There's a conference this afternoon, 4 o'clock, on this with the FCC. We're following this very closely and be happy to assist you and be on your side as you try to move forward and attract these investments.
There's supposed to be something coming out to change it, because usually they did it on a census block. And then there's some type of, they're just going to change it this year where it's a simpler or more, not quite as complicated. Is that correct?
I would call it more accurate, probably similarly complicated, but it's at the location level now, and not the census block level. So we're getting more accurate, but without the counties and state kind of engaging in that, the accuracy is going to be less so. And so, give you a quick example, every location could receive, $3,000 to $7,000 if they're eligible.
When you're saying location, you mean?
A home, a farm, a business, if they're eligible. If they're not eligible, that money goes somewhere else. So you can imagine if you had 100 locations, or 500 locations that you wanted to make eligible, those numbers and the value there starts to really climb quickly.
Some might not know this, but a couple years ago, there was a plan that was put in by the federal government to put broadband in Vermilion County. And what does they call it? What was it called? ARP or
RDOF.
RDOF.
Yeah.
RDOF auction, they call it. And Charter Communications got the bid for Vermilion County. And what happened is Charter Communications backed out of their contract. And I've been in communication with Braun. I've been in communication with several different elected officials on the federal level. That my argument always been, if there was money appropriated for Vermilion County at that point, then why isn't it still available for something for us? And what they did, the Charter Communications picked and choose who they wanted, what counties they wanted. And I think it's not right. And that money that was appropriated for Vermilion County, every time I see them, I ask them, where's my money? Because we should have had that money appropriated someplace. And it seems like we've got the short end of the stick in that deal. But that was our plan, and take our ARP money and do the rest of it, try to finish out the county, our original goal. And when they backed out, it just threw everything up. So one of the big issues we have is how do we, and the other thing is, do you know anything about the Starlink? Is that ever going to be approved for?
The FCC denied Starlink's application to the RDOF fund. I don't believe we had any of those here in Vermilion, but they've been denied. And so it's the chairperson of the FCC called it an emerging technology, I think was her terminology, that's just not quite there yet. And so we can still look at that. Doesn't mean you can't look at that. If there are places that are extremely remote and that is literally the only option, then it's your only option, and for better or worse,
You've signed up for it.
I'm in line for a beta test to try it myself. I don't want to experience it at my home. I've got, believe it or not, issues with internet at my house as well too. You have had it?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Okay, yeah.
On the charter part, Commissioner, I would say one of the unfortunate things about all the money that's come down is you have a lot of companies out there who are doing similar things to communities, right? They go in and they take this money, they go make promises. One of the things we do in our process is we take the federal government out of it in a way. We set up the contract with the community itself, put very tight restrictions in there that if you're going to take, if the dollars are supposed to go somewhere, that if you don't do that, then we have recourse to either take that money somewhere else or use another company. I think that example you use is one of those things. When broadband first came out, there were a lot of companies telling communities just that, hey, we'll do this, we'll get these funds. We go through, we verify any company we talk to, we verify their financials, we verify those conversations to take out the possibility. There's always a possibility somebody will back out, right? I'm not going to say we 100% guarantee that, but we take out some of those possibilities that a company may back out. Even if they do, we'll have the ability to go after them, whichever way the contract dictates.
Well, our problem is we had someone to give us a complete study of what needs to be done to bring us all the way up to where we've completely broadband covered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of different variables. We have a lot of rural stuff. I mean, most of your internet companies now, especially one I know of, they want to put everything under the ground, which is a great way to do it, but yet it's not cost efficient.
Mm-hmm.
When you're going down the road a mile to a guy's house, and is that something you guys could do as far as come up with something for the entire county? I mean, is that what you do?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we do, and I think 100% full disclosure. Part of the conversation is with whether it's with Doug or with you all to figure out. To your point, not every place is going to be able to get fiber, and every place is going to get 5G. So you have to say, hey, is the target 80%? is to target 85%, and we help you get there. I think that's one of the huge misconceptions is with broadband rates, people, hey, we're going to invest in broadband, and they assume 6 months from now everybody's going to be able to have, an internet connection or broadband connection. I think what we try to do is help you flesh out those conversations, know exactly what our target is, and get to that target that's a reasonable one, financially reasonable for the county, financially reasonable for the provider, and then gives as much access as you can to the people that are in areas that can get it.
Has the coverage criteria changed?
Coverage criteria in terms of the speeds, or
Mhm.
it is seemingly changing every day. Every week we're seeing changes to how the programs will be funded, who will be eligible. It's the final rules don't ever seem to be final. So I think the last one was an interim final ruling, and so we're watching that. But 100 over 20, 100 download speed, 20 upload speed and below is considered underserved at this point from the
Yeah,
federal
that's changed
perspective.
then.
Yeah, and 25.3 and below is considered unserved. The state now uses 25.3 as its unserved level. The underserved space is a little bit gray, but in the state program.
How are you compensated?
So we have a monthly retainer or hourly. We're flexible on the conversation that we agreed upon price that we can all work through on hours each month. And then if we go to the RFP process, we do have a flat RFP fee that if the RFP takes 7 months, then it's the same price. If it takes 3 months, it's the same price to that.
When you get down to the end of it, what percentage does this end up being of our cost to put in broadband at a 90 or 85% level? Are you 2% of that, 20% of that cost that we end up?
We'd have to look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking probably millions in investment to cover the county, and so it'd be a very tiny fraction.
2 or 3%, if that. And I just wanted to go back one thing to what John said. On broadband, as I said, I was chief of staff at the IEDC, and quality of place is the conversation now with companies looking to move. And I think before the pandemic, there was a conversation that people wanted broadband or they wanted streaming services, but did they need them? Now that conversation is completely flipped, right? So from I negotiated the Elanco deal in downtown Indy, and quality of life was a big part of their conversation of why they moved there. And as they look at other areas within this region with facilities they want to make sure their employees in Indianapolis, their employees outside of Indianapolis are having the same experience there. And I think we all know as a time when the workforce, getting people to work in your area, those type of things are really important on a economic development standpoint, to be able to go tell, and John probably goes through this every day, to go tell people, hey, they have access to broadband. They have the same access in Terre Haute as they do here in Newport, and so you can go anywhere in the region and be really successful. So from an economic development tool, I would tell you it's also very important.
Are there planning grants that are available to help compensate for your fees?
I think we're going to maybe see some of those emerge. I'm not aware of any at the moment. If I could just add one thing to Tim's point on the default, that auction required a 6-year build out with the charter award. What we're seeing in other counties is actually, if you do an RFP, you can secure maybe a 2-year build out with a fewer restrictions on the way that funding flows. And so that would be kind of our first look, is to say, hey, what is the quickest we can possibly get investment on the ground and at the largest scale? And I think all of those, as I mentioned before, all those investors that were there in that RDOF auction, including Charter, are still very willing, still very interested, and we will want to talk to them and see what we can work out.
If the next level grant has been awarded that was going on for broadband?
Round 3 has been awarded. I did not have a chance to look at Vermilion to see what you had in the pipeline, but your provider would need to accept that fund. The state is using some federal funding for that through the Treasury. Some contracts are being worked out as we speak, and so if you did get an award and the provider accepted, it should be hitting the ground here pretty shortly with an agreement.
What types of pathways do you look at? The aerial, buried, Wi-Fi, well, not Wi-Fi, but transmission?
I think you should look at everything you can get your hands on and not be blind to anything that, in some people's case, a certain technology may be literally the only option today and in the near future. And so I think you just want to see those. You don't have to choose any of those technologies, but I think you want to look at them because you might need those. It's very rare that an entire county would be covered with one technology and one provider. It does happen. It's happening more frequently now than ever before, I think, but typically there's a hybrid type of solution. It just depends. Rocky conditions underground, you know, maybe expensive poles to attach to above ground, you know, hilly, rugged, forested terrain is not typically conducive to some wireless point-to-point. So you've got a real variety, and then cost, right? What does the county want to put in? What are you looking for in terms of service? So lots of variables there, but what we'll try to do is help you see the absolute best option in every area that we can get our hands on. Hopefully there's an option in every space.
Yeah, I would say, Commissioner, yeah, that's exactly what we would look at everything. We'd have, you know, whatever the time frame, if it's calls with Doug, if it's calls with you, to lay out what we perceive to be the best options, but we would also walk through, you know, with all the counties we represent now on this, we're doing these calls weekly, it feels like, which is great, because it's so important to explain what's out there, what your options are, and then also do it in a responsible way, financially, in a responsible way from a timing standpoint for your county.
What type of investment would a county our size be looking at, square miles and by population, or whatever parameter you want to pick?
It all depends on how many locations will be served and what technology is used, what method, aerial or underground. But typically, you know, I would say anywhere from 3,000 per location to 7,000 per location, roughly 5,000 per location. So, and we can help you get to those numbers pretty quickly with some back of the napkin stuff that'll get us in the ballpark. But I suspect you're looking, you know, for a number of $1 million of private investment to match, you know, a county contribution. It just all depends on kind of what we find.
We had two firms that put in for funding. One firm didn't want no money. Another one asked for money. So by getting that money, it gives them more leverage to. Does that actually create a more favorable?
Well, I think what's the great win-win there is the private investor gets into the market quicker and secures the business, and the community gets the investment the quickest, right? So those, and you don't have to put anything in. So we are seeing that full private investment, you know. Now, I'll say it's rare, and in your case, we'll have to take a closer look at whether we think that's feasible. But yeah, they want to do that to get into the market first. They know it's hard for people to switch later. It's less likely that they'll do that, and there are also some other reasons why investors are kind of coming out of the woodwork and wanting to do that sort of arrangement with low or no local match. But it is very rare.
And one of the things that I've seen that I always like to see is take ARP money, and some of these people are never going to get it. So why not provide them some type of money to help them to get Starlink? I know the ARP money, I think you checked and we couldn't use it for that, but now since we've changed it into the general fund, that takes away, maybe might take away that restriction. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I mean, that's something we need to check. There's certain places we're never going to reach. I mean, if you got funding for the whole county for people and people can't be reached, they're not being served, and they're paying taxes like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So they should get some piece of the pie. And so that's something I was looking at. Maybe if that was a possibility now, that's something we could research.
So you guys took your ARPA money and put it in your general fund?
Yeah.
Because we do ARPA compliance too, which I think we discussed.
Yeah.
I think in that situation, it should be an allowable expense unless there is some county restriction on those that you guys have on your books. But from an ARPA standpoint, once you put it in the general fund, majority of the restrictions are taken away.
Because it was about $600 for it now.
I'm sorry.
$600 for to get the Starlink.
I I think it went up.
Might have went up.
Mhm.
That's about what it was, right?
500 to 600,
Yeah.
maybe 650.
That's what I'm saying, you know, how do you serve everybody and be fair?
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties of it. I mean, I would say from the, you know, I think something you guys have going for you is your proximity to Illinois, right? So to Scott's point, somebody coming in the market, but we've run 2 RFPs east of here, pretty close counties that they've each had 6 to 9 providers that have wanted to come into the market, offering all kinds of, you know, from 100% to you know, 50-50 match to less than that. So I think there will be interest everywhere. And then, but to my earlier point too, it's figuring out what's success look like. Is it 80%? Is it 85%? And then we could also, you know, help think through what happens with the other 15% to give them you know, access to some type of online services.
Have you seen any counties go together as a region or combine counties to do these type of services?
We haven't yet. I would not be against it. I mean, I think the thing, you haven't either, right? I mean,
No, I have not.
There's been conversations being had, and I think there could be some benefits to it. I think if you take out, if all things are equal, right, a bigger region, if everybody can agree on, you know, what they want is a great thing. I mean, I think, you know, when Ready was ultimately put together, that was part of the plan, right? Get this regional economic development going. I think what we've found as communities start having conversations, they just realize that they have a completely different point of view when it comes to it. But you know, if you wanted to facilitate those conversations, I don't think it can hurt.
I think one of the biggest things was the lack of a master plan of all of it. And so you had all different entities being involved in doing something. There was no direct plan where you had overlapping. This one's doing this and this one's doing that. And it was just it's not been good.
And you know, I think there's a misconception too, right? That if you invest in, to our point, if you invest in broadband, that everybody's going to get it, and then, you know, the community you know, gets upset when certain people don't do it. And if you have counties that still are thinking, hey, if we can invest XYZ $1 million, we're going to get everybody, and then, you know, as the plans flesh out, just you run into complications.
Luke, I think KSM has provided a lot of good information today, and I think you guys can definitely help Vermilion County, and I think you guys made a lot of good points today. I would be interested in if one of the other commissioners would agree in seeing a proposal put together, something on paper, maybe emailed to us or given to us. That way we can look at it on paper and see what you guys can do and provide to Vermilion County.
We'll have that to you by the time we get back.
Look forward to talking to you more about this and
You too.
see a proposal and see what we can.
Thank you. We
discuss.
appreciate your time.
Anybody else got any questions for these two? They're here. Got a question here.
I was curious, guys, the mentioned front end of federal money is contingent on mapping areas that are underserved. How do we be confident that we've done our very best to identify those areas, that we don't look back and, gosh, we should have maybe done more?
It's a great question, and it's one of the things I think we could help, you know, really the community with, is learning what to do, how you can be helpful. We hear from people who don't have service and they're motivated. We hear it as frustration. As an elected official, I hear it sounds like frustration. It is frustrating, but these folks are also motivated. They want to solve the problem, and so we want to give you some communication tools to say, do you need service? Have you signed up for the Indiana Connectivity Program? Have you taken the Farm Bureau speed test? These are 2 steps that'll help you get in that direction. Is the county considering, you know, through your GIS resources, you know, evaluating the new FCC map, talking to the state? These things that piece is still very much under development, and so we're waiting to see your best path forward can help you, you know, go through there. But the best way is to engage the community through the schools, libraries, your health, you know, your task force group, which is on the right track to get the message out to the people who need it, and so they know exactly what they can do. This map will allow a residential, you know, a resident farm, a business to challenge directly as an individual on the map. You can go on, you can't do it yet, but you can go on, I think after December, and see your house and say, yes or no, we agree, essentially. And so there's several things like that that won't help you get through the media and through your contract to make sure every single home is at least considered eligible, if not funded.
But there's a lot of complications when people get to the place where they're looking at how that was set up. That was set up on a census block, right? If one company, if they had a certain amount in that one census block, they was considered served, right? Even
Correct.
though the rest of it wasn't. It was
Correct.
very, very vague. Very vague.
Not accurate.
Yep, not accurate.
Yep, they're trying to change that.
Doug? Doug's been working on some of this too, so.
Yeah.
We
And
thought
I-
we'd have him here, we'd ask all the questions we can while we're here.
Doug has economic development, and I have met with these gentlemen several times. Just a couple quick things that piggyback on. I know Britton had asked if we were partner or could we partner with other counties. We've already been in conversations with Warren County. They're in the process of doing an RFI, RFP process. And while we're not going to be officially part of that, they are adding us as an amendment or attachment or appendix, whatever you want to refer to it as, to see if these companies would be interested in also piggybacking with Vermilion County as well, with the understanding that, using arbitrary numbers, 15,000, let's say, is how many citizens is in Warren County, and we have 15,000. 30,000 is more attractive to companies than just 15,000. So we are in the process of having that attached to their RFP. I've already met with the Indiana Farm Bureau last week, and as soon as those maps are available, they're going to be sending that to us, and we're going to get that out so we can challenge the FCC when it comes to how accurate that is. So that's in the pipeline. That's going to be worked on as well. And then John's already left, but a couple other things. So we already talked about the broadband. Obviously, we've got some things in the pipeline with housing in terms of that. And then the last thing I want to say is child care. We are working on a plan for child care that we are borrowing a template from another county that's going to be a little bit different. It's thinking outside the box, and we are in the process of writing that proposal, and then we're going to be presenting that to some individuals. We're not there yet, but we're in the very close to be able to approach that. So we feel like we're working on all three of those. Got a lot of balls in the air, so we're not able to concentrate on any one at any particular time, but we are working on all three of those pretty aggressively. And like I said, we've met with Luke and Scott and Greg several times, and so just quick update on that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions for?
And just so you know, we also work with Warren County as well, so we're very familiar with them.
Are you contracted to them already?
We are.
Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you.
Bob Grew, since you're here, you want to go ahead and say something? You're on the agenda, but we'd like to see if you have anything to say. Yeah, get you out of here.
Good morning, Bob Grew, Vermilion Rise. I want to note that we've adjusted our meeting dates to the Monday before the third Thursday. So we're meeting Monday, October 17th to accommodate one of our board members who's had some scheduling challenges. We're working with Doug and his group on a digital sign along 63 near the Rise, and lots of details and permitting within that we're working through. Also, Purdue University's contacted us about a weather station. They're trying to place weather stations in each county throughout Indiana. It's called the Mesonet Weather Station Network. So we're trying to accommodate a location that's suitable for them from, setbacks and away from pavement and heat sinks and things. So we thought it would be a nice addition to the Rise, and the county would be able to access that real-time data if it might be a school project or something. We thought it would be a nice addition. We have agreed to a land purchase agreement, so Newport Pallet, our first tenant at the Rise, now is intending to purchase his 80,000 acre building and the 35 acres that it sits on. He's made a lot of improvements to that property already, and probably feels like he'd rather own it than continue to lease it. So we're real happy about that.
When you sell any property within the Rise, there's Fed still got a retainer on, was it $9,000 an acre? You got to pay them to release that liability?
There's
on
a
that?
formula, yes, there's a formula for any land sale, and we had it adjusted 3 or 4 years ago. We asked the Army for a little bit of, let us keep a little bit more money when we had to refinance our water main, our $3 million water line loan. So, but there is a formula for that, yes, every time we sell land.
Do you have a certain date that that's to be all paid off from the feds? Or is that?
Well, I mean, I think our next extension goes to 2025.
So something you guys just keep renegotiating?
Well, if we come into a really nice revenue stream and we can pay it off, if we're still sort of treading water financially and not in a position, we might ask for another extension.
If that was paid off, how would that benefit you?
We just get the Army off the books. For instance, when we sell land, we got to go back to the Army and get a mortgage release from them. And it kind of cuts both ways. On the other hand, you know, once the Army's gone financially, they don't have this mortgage arrangement with us. You know, it might be harder to get them on the phone. You know, we'll be completely out of the Army's hair and probably can't go back and ask for a favor or whatnot. But the biggest thing with the Army when we have these conversations, at the end of the day, if any environmental concerns are ever discovered out there, it still goes back to the Army. So they're ultimately still responsible for the property in that regard. So.
Anything update on your solar?
Yeah, we signed the solar lease agreement, and Ordin is continuing to work that project. They claim they're going to be at our October 17th meeting and continue discussion about just moving that project forward. And one other note here too, we did ask IDEM, you know, another kind of thing we've had on our horizon is the IDEM were under an agreed order to remove that large reservoir from our water system. They don't like the idea of the water sitting there, sort of getting stale, if you will. So they've given us 2 more years to figure that out. And again, they've given us multiple extensions. The water quality's fine. They want to do that. And then you guys were talking about READY, and we're also curious about the READY program. You know, the first READY program, we've submitted pages and pages of projects, and so if READY 2 comes around, a lot of ours are more infrastructure related.
Did you submit it on the first time around?
No. That
was not awarded, I guess?
They indicated all our infrastructure stuff just wasn't what the state was looking for. They were looking for quality of life sorts of projects, so we want to follow up on that.
Okay.
So I think that's some updates, yeah.
Very good. Anybody, any other questions?
I don't.
Thank you, Bob. Next, we have Board of Health, tattoo ordinance.
Morning. My name's Kim Hawkins from County Board of Health. And first of all, Dr. Mark would like to extend her apologies not being able to attend today. She's had a little bit of sickness, and so I got designated to do this. What I'd like to introduce today would be a ordinance that would be required for any type of enforcement over the tattoo and body piercing. We recently, which I guess is a good thing, had a new business open up, and actually the owner of the facility came to us and wanted to know what the requirements was. I checked with the state and they said it all goes to the county, and then we opened up searching the other counties around us and other parts of the state, and they said they have an ordinance so that they can enforce to keep out of the county any parlors that would open up that undesirable or just not, you know, something you want in your county, to kind of protect it. And without an ordinance, that would be the only way we can protect against it. It goes along with the septic and the restaurants it gives us the health department the opportunity or our duties to go in and investigate locations, make sure they're following all the rules, and if we catch in violation or receive a complaint, that we have some form of action we can do. This ordinance spells out, I think, now this is kind of I think there were 5 or 6 different counties that we sent out to, and we tried to stay with counties our size, and came up with this. And then we forwarded it to Mr. Spur, and he came back and had some changes that's been made. So today I'd just like to introduce this ordinance, and I realize that you know, this will only be the first go of it, but answer any questions you'd have about the ordinance.
What would be the cost of inspection, or cost to the Board of Health? I assume the Board of Health would do the inspections and so forth.
There's no cost for the inspections, of course, but
I meant-
there's a permit fee of $200. That would be a yearly fee, and
Kim, I just have a,
go ahead.
I just have a question on that yearly fee of $200. Does that seem a little high compared to other counties, or is that accurate? Because restaurant fees
That's
are
actually
like,
in between.
Is it? Okay.
Some of the counties were higher.
Okay.
And yes, restaurants are less than that.
That's, I was just doing a comparison. I just didn't know if 200 seemed a little high for it to be a yearly fee.
Then we have a temporary establishment permit. That would be like if someone wanted to locate this weekend at the hill climb, it would cost them $100 to set up, and
temporary.
just like we do the vendors that sets up. And there's late fees. Artist fee is if you get some nationally renowned tattoo artist to appear, he would have to pay what is the guest, $75, and that's for only 2 weeks. And there's a late fee and a repeat violation. The repeat violation, Mr. Luther, might be what be the only involvement we would have in receiving any penalties.
What I meant more is, what's the cost to the Board of Health to perform these? Is it an hour's worth of time?
Or just
A
the
day,
time,
week?
yes, that would be the only thing that would require. And I talked to Dr. Market yesterday on the phone, and she said to relay to you that she kind of went down the line, because I said, what if the question comes up about fees, and if there's any, I think we can do the ordinance, and if there's some problems or some adjustments you would like to suggest on the fees, I think that could be done, because it's not actually part of the ordinance. And again, it goes through the health board. The health board did pass this rate. They were comfortable with it. So that was done at the last meeting. I think we've checked off everything we're supposed to do to present it.
Have we looked at the forecast of the cost of enforcement in case there's someone who doesn't comply with whatever the rules are? Are we
It would just be writing up a charge violation, and then, yeah, whatever court cost or whatever else would imply. I don't know if it'd be, out of pocket. It's kind of already in place,
Well, what I'm concerned about is that if we have to enforce, that there's a cost to that, and does the fee actually cover our cost to actually enforce the
Well,
ordinance?
it would cover. I mean, it would be part of it, yes.
You believe it's sufficient to cover whatever those costs might be?
The fees we got here established, I think, more than cover. Yeah, I think they would be within the range.
Okay.
Covering everything.
Calls for 2 inspections a year.
I'm sorry?
2 inspections a year.
On the tattoo, no, we don't call for 2. They could be as many as you want. And they go if someone files a complaint, calls in. It goes around, it gives us the right to go into a building. Something that we've overlooked for a long time was restaurant inspections. Actually, if a person at a restaurant wanted to tell the health department before we had the ordinance to, no, you're not entering this establishment, to inspect it, they actually could have done that. That would have been something that had been go to court to get the permit to do. And that's the same thing. This eliminates that option that you can go right in, and that's part of it. When you get your permit, it allows the representative from the health department to come and inspect your premises.
What do you say about the inspections? Right here it says it shall conduct inspections of each facility. The Vermillion County Health Department shall conduct a minimum of 2 inspections per year.
Well, I think they're counting the original before they open, it has to be inspected, and during the operation it has to be inspected. I don't know if that's what they're referring to. I'm glad you pointed, you said that, and that's quite possible that up to two a year. You know, I don't know if you want to do 3, if that'd be a problem or not, you know. So.
The other thing is so anybody can come along and start doing tattooing.
Right now, basically, yes.
And there's no license required as far as to be a licensed tattoo person.
Not under the
they're sticking needles in people. You think seem like there'd be more, you know, I mean something there more than, I'm not saying anything about you guys. I mean through the whole state, it seems like there'd be more. If someone sticking a needle in someone, it seemed like there'd be some type of training they'd have to have or certification somewhere. You know.
My question was, should we have to have the jails to be licensed because so many people come out of jails with tattoos? They call them jailhouse tattoos. And like
well, I don't think we can regulate that.
Some of the best tattoo artists probably are in jail.
Yeah, I would, if there's no other questions or concerns, I'd like to do this as a first reading. Ordinance number 2022-15 is a first reading today.
I don't think I'm quite ready for the first reading, and we just got this Saturday after 3:30 or so. I'm not even approached.
Okay, I mean, if you want to wait.
Are we in an emergency situation though, or?
No, but
are we at risk, I guess?
I would like for it to be on record that this won't count as a visit. If you understand what I don't want this to be that you know, later determined this was like a first reading. You're fine, and Dr. Marker will be glad to come.
Well, your first reading really doesn't hurt. It's just I've not had an opportunity.
You know, I've already read it over the weekend, but yeah, if you or Tim need time to review it, then
I'd like to review it first for a first reading.
It's up to you guys.
So how would this put this? Because we don't want to put no delay in this, no more than what we have to.
Well, that's up to you guys.
It's not an emergency because
okay.
I have been in and I've had 2 visits to the current one, but there wasn't anything I could enforce, nor could I say there would have been anything I could have enforced. But talking with him over this.
Is there a grandfather clause to this or anything?
No.
So anybody that's already in business will have to apply in a certain length of time, I take it?
And he has reviewed this. The owner has reviewed this, and he has no problem. He's not asking any question because I invited him to the meeting today, and he could stand up and ask, you know. But he said this is similar to what he went through. Before this, he was in Vigo County, and this basically the same thing he had there. Most people that would be changing business location, they've been through this. So we just haven't had it, hadn't been brought up, but I don't believe we've had too many operating tattoo parlors in the county, maybe
Was there one that started operation on 9th Street or something?
For a while.
Disappeared?
Yeah, and that's about 2 or 3 years ago.
I remember something there, but I didn't know. Okay, we'll take that, and then a little more time, there ain't no problem doing it. But if it's emergency, you need to tell us when we need to get it done. I would need to get it done quicker, but.
It's not, but
okay.
Like I say, I just don't want it to come back that, you
right.
know. Okay?
Thank you very much. Next we'll go back to, start back on our agenda. Ambulance Contract Committee.
I've drafted, I'm not quite, I think I'm ready to send that to you guys for a look at as far as the assignments to the ambulance committee. This is for the contract portion of the committee. Need one more review, and then I'll be sending it to you for your reviews, and I think we can assign that committee next time. Currently, though, I'm looking at Bill Hartman as public finance, John Spur, legal, for basically, Rick Weir, he's on the council, and primarily he's...
Can everybody hear him? I'm not being rude. Sometimes we speak and you can't hear us, so go ahead.
Rick Weir, council, and then also he sits on the ambulance facility committee. Dr. Market, basically the Board of Health, and then Dave Marietta to cover basically the insurance areas of this. So basically we're looking at 5 individuals on the committee. We had looked at, after we read the assignments next week, we can confirm these or change them accordingly.
Well, I definitely think, I've said this multiple times, the commissioner needs to sit on some of this. I mean, I don't understand about putting all these public, when I say public, there's one public person on, well, 2, Bill Hartman and Dave Marietta. I mean, we're the elected officials, and it seems like anymore we get these committees together, and all we want to do is take their recommendation. We don't want to do any research ourselves. So, yeah, I will definitely at least object to one of those names for a commissioner to sit on this if we go forward with a ambulance contract committee. I mean, this ambulance has been a hot topic issue. I don't know if this is the correct time to do it, but Tim, I'm going to ask. Last week I had requested for...
if we can stay on this topic, I appreciate it.
Ambulance has to do with this, so... It's a contract committee. That's exactly what we're rolling into. Last week, Tim, I had requested for the ambulance to be on the agenda to talk about some of the contract issues. And in their contract under section 14, I had sent that to you. And today I see that it is not on the agenda. Can you give me a reason why it was not put on the agenda?
If you want us to talk about it, we can talk about it right now.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay. We can talk about it. You have the floor.
Can you say what 14
that's what I'm at.
is?
Section 14, the representative of the service to attend commissioners' meetings and be prepared to answer questions from the public or elected officials.
The reason why, there's things that in this county that we need to be dealt with in a different manner. There are things that come up that affect the county. A person can say one thing and speak for others, and I know you made some public comments that were not endorsed by us as a group, and you have a right to do that. But on the other hand, my idea when dealing with things in our county, it seems like everybody wants to blow it up and make it a big stinky thing. And look what our county's going through. And I don't. That's not the proper process.
Well, I'm just quoting what's in the contract with Ileana that was signed by, I don't know that you signed it, but Commissioner Wilson and Crosley did. And it says in section 14, this isn't anything new. This literally states that their contract, all we have to do is ask them to come. So this isn't something someone's trying to make different. I'm just wondering why we didn't honor this 14 section that I asked to be on the agenda.
Because we are having another meeting today, and some of the stuff that it seems like this is a touchy issue.
I'm just curious because I know Commissioner Luther sends his agenda, and at no point did you remove any of his suggestions to the agenda. You haven't in months, and this is a legitimate issue. Okay, you may have reviewed. You may have removed a few things. Okay.
I have I not?
Okay. Cheyenne,
if you want to talk about it today, go ahead. I mean,
that's what I'm doing, Tim. I'm just curious why in section 14 you didn't allow this on the agenda. I mean, an executive meeting is fine except for the fact the public, we can't talk about it, you can't talk about it, Mr. Shaughnessy can't talk about it to the public from an executive meeting, and this would be a perfect time. So how about next meeting? I'm going to request again that this be on the agenda, and are you going to deny it again next meeting?
It depends on what decision we make. I think that first of all we need to deal with things in a privately to see if we can get things resolved. And that's the first thing to do.
Have you asked Eric to be here? If it's in the contract, if you could have just asked him to show up.
Well, Brenton, I could have, but Tim sets the agenda as the president, so I go through the proper protocols. I don't just add anything to the agenda myself. I sent this to Cheyenne and the commissioner president, and I cited section 14 in the contract. So yeah, Brenton, I could have, but then I would have been overstepping the president's bounds as president of the commissioners.
the thing is that it's just for him to be in attendance. Does it say that he's going to speak or?
It says the representative of the service to attend commissioners' meetings and be prepared to answer questions from the public or elected officials.
Okay, that's not an agenda item. He's going to be.
I had
prepared.
requested that Ileana EMS be put on the contract, on the agenda to answer questions that I had. And apparently, Tim, I don't know if you denied it as well, or if it was just you as the president. I don't know, because you never did return my email or text, so I don't know.
As I said before, things that go on of this nature ought to be first come to an executive meeting to be discussed. And that's what we're planning on doing.
Okay, so I'll request this again, and could you next time at least email me back and let me know it won't be on the agenda?
That's fine.
Or at least talk to one of your fellow commissioners?
But I mean, I just got a question for you. When the paramedic ambulance service came in years ago, I was one of the ones that worked hard for the paramedic ambulance service in Vermilion County, which Vermilion County was the only county in the state of Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, did not have a paramedic ambulance service, which meant if you got picked up and the local ambulance service took you to the hospital or was taking you to the hospital, if you had to give IV or give you drugs, they could not give it to you.
No.
It was a state. It was bad.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad. And I know that when this came up, you voted against it. So
Well, when I voted against what?
You voted against it on the council.
I voted against, I guess you're going to have to refresh my memory. What did I vote against on the
Voted
council?
approval of the ambulance contract, you voted against it.
Oh, when they were requesting ludicrous amounts of money at the time, yeah.
When it was funded, period.
No, it was the addendum. It was the additionals. If you go back and look, there was a big issue during the budget hearings that price had went up. You can go back and look at all this, Tim. Yeah, there were several of us on the council that weren't going to vote for something and be prudent of taxpayers' dollars. I've never been against a paramedic level service in this county. I'm against a service not providing what their contract says, like July 14th when they violated their contract.
Right.
And the commissioners have not done anything to
Well,
this.
that's like, you know, what do you suggest? I got some things I got suggested to handle this. What would you suggest you do about this?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think the director should be answering to the public, first of all. I think hiding behind an executive meeting doesn't do anybody any good. Doesn't do the public, doesn't do the county commissioners, doesn't do any of us any good. I mean, we can't talk about it. I mean, we're bound by state law that we cannot talk about an executive meeting. I mean, if I was a director, I'd want to let the constituents know that, hey, there was an issue last Tuesday and it's been rectified and we're good to go.
So
Quite
what would
frankly,
you
I don't think a
recommend
town
as
hall
far
is
as?
an appropriate place for that, even if commissioners are hired to do this, or elected to do this type of thing. If the public wants to listen, that's fine. If they want to submit questions, I think that'd be appropriate. A town hall over a contract, no.
Well, I mean,
don't
it
think
says
that at
right
all.
here, prepared to answer questions from the public, so.
Well, that's part of the contract. That doesn't mean that we have to do it that way. That's just part of the contract that they have.
You're right,
to
and apparently
do
that's the way we're not going to do it, according to our president of the commissioners. Apparently that's exactly how we're not
You've
going
had
to.
an opportunity all along to be able to do this, and now it's a big deal for some reason today.
For some reason last week, Britton, there was an issue with the ambulance, just like in July 14th when they violated their contract, didn't run a third ambulance, and weren't running paramedics.
Now, I have an issue with that too. Last week
Let him talk. It's free talk.
Last week, we, on Wednesday, got word that an ambulance was repossessed. I called and asked them what the deal was, found out. On Friday, I hear on WTHI, you go on TV.
I was misquoted, and if you read my statement, you would see that.
I saw your thing, but the thing is why did it have anything to do with last July when an ambulance was repossessed on Wednesday or Thursday, whatever day it was?
They had asked about that. And Britton, if someone asks me a question, I'm going to answer it. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, they weren't in violation in last July.
You're on TV and you made a misstatement. It was whether you're right or wrong.
No. I was misquoted. Read my statement.
Did you go back and ask the WTHI then to retract your
Yeah, I
statement?
did, Britton.
And did they do that?
Well, they said they would update the story and they would retract it. I can't control what the news does.
Well, maybe you should put it in writing if you're going to do this. That way don't misquote you. But it was a ridiculous exhibit. Embarrassment not only to the ambulance but to the county. The other thing is that did you ask any of the commissioners? You went in front of the public and made a statement as a county commissioner. Did you ever ask any of the commissioners whether they would agreed with this
Well,
or
Britain
go
won.
that way or not?
Hey, this is rich today.
It is.
So if we're gonna go
This
on,
isn't the first time.
Yeah, if we're gonna go on this, I received a phone call last night. that
Let's
you-
stay on topic
that
if
you
we
had re-
can.
Well, this goes into what you're saying. You had
This
called a
has-
department head last night and told them you were moving economic development, and it wasn't if, but when.
Okay, now let's go down the rabbit hole. Now, who did you hear that from?
What does it matter?
It does matter, because.
A
how many-
department head called me and told me
Who?
that. What does it matter?
Because it makes, how many people are in this line that you finally hear something
I'm gonna call this
at
back,
11
get
o'clock
back
at
control
night?
here.
So let's
You-
go, come on.
Hey,
Who is
Britain, it doesn't matter. Just like the ambulance thing. You want everything
Well,
handled in an
apparently it
executive
does.
meeting. You want everything
Hey,
handled in an executive
we're
meeting.
calling a cancel here.
A
Yeah.
cancel. So now that we're discussing something, you don't
Well,
want to
I
talk
mean,
about it.
Each one of you guys have your closing comments, and we're gonna move on. And that's, I'll give you, I mean, you gotta get some control here, and I appreciate both of you, and I'm gonna give you both a chance to say something.
Well, Tim, I would call my commissioner president, like he says, call my other commissioners. Well, you don't answer the phone call when I call you. You rarely answer my text. You do not answer the emails when I ask why this wasn't put on the agenda. So, I mean, in the future, I would appreciate some email or some communication to your vice president. And Britton, yeah, I didn't call you. I mean, if the news calls me, I know I had to check in and say, hey, let me see if I can talk about this issue publicly. I didn't know is that our protocols as commissioners now? We have to stop and check with each other?
I think it should be on
Are
something.
you, when you're
Oh,
doing something
okay.
like-
Okay.
The thing is that, are you done with your comment? I was trying to.
Well,
give you
I'm just
a-
trying to give you guys both, get some control with respect to both, so.
Are you finished?
Well, if that's what Tim thinks, that's fine, but I mean, I'm not gonna call and check in on both of you on if I have to give a statement. That's
If
just
you
not
make,
what's gonna
if you
happen.
make something, a public statement affects the entire county, you should be consulting with us.
It doesn't affect the entire county. My statement was nothing but the truth.
I don't.
Okay.
It was nothing but the truth.
Brett, you got a closing comment on that?
Whenever any county commissioners, like Vigo goes on, you'll see them go on TV to do something as to a proponent for something or against something or for something, whatever it is, make a statement. You get the impression that the county commissioners are in agreement with this. In fact, they have a spokesman typically, and they agree on who's going to go and make a statement if they will. And I think it would be a common courtesy if we're going to use our position as a county commissioner and state that as county commissioner, that we would be representing the county. If we want to make statements as individuals, then make so, but don't represent us as a county commissioner.
At no point
Unless
did
we
I
have-
quote either one of you and say this is the county commissioner saying this. This was RJ
It's the
Donovan.
impression, if nothing else, the optics, as so many people say. I heard on Sunday night that now the ambulance service has been resolved, that now it's not a problem, they do have 3 ambulances, they always did, but anyway, they're still on that ambulance thing. If they corrected something, they didn't even correct it on Sunday. But when it come down to it though, is that it's still the optics of things. And you're representing, and that night they said the commissioners, now they included not one, but plural, whether it's all 3 or 2 anyway. But it's an issue. The same thing happened up by the north side when NDOT. We had a meeting. We had opportunity. We had a couple of months to even make comments to NDOT, and only one comment, as far as I know, went out to them as for that incident that happened up there. Terrible incident. But it wasn't NDOT's fault. The thing is that it came down to another emotional outcry that got the public so worked up that NDOT had threats.
Britton, I'm just going to say this right now.
We're gonna move on.
No, Tim,
I
I'm going
gotta
to say
make
this.
my comment.
I'm going to say this after he makes his closing comment because that was out of line.
NDOT had death threats made to them because of all this that went down. Again, it was an optics of a commissioner making comments on his own without even consulting any other commissioner. Right, wrong, or indifferent, whether we agreed or didn't agree, he still didn't. When it comes down to it, we have a county that we want to try to. I don't know what your agenda is.
Brent and I have no hidden agenda, but I'll tell you what, I think the community, and I'm
RJ,
glad
you got
that-
a closing comment? Okay.
Yeah, I will.
Another
I'm
closing comment?
glad this is being live streamed here today. I will say that. Number one, to say that was an emotional statement to anything to the state of Indiana over that horrible crash of that individual that died up there, that student, that was horrible. And to even say that I'm over here doing something for an agenda is just below the belt entirely, Britton. That is just completely out of line to even make a statement like that. And you know what? NDOT has done nothing at that intersection for 22 years. And now we finally have something going down, and I'd like to think it has something to do with the outcry of the citizens, of this commissioner. And you and Commissioner Yoakum done nothing, made no public statements when that individual died in that horrible crash. So I cannot,
had
I
an
cannot
opportunity
believe.
to work with NDOT 2 months before that. You didn't do a single thing.
Yes, I did.
What did you
I
send
made
them?
those statements in
No,
the beef
before
house.
that.
Yes, I did.
Guys, we're done. We're done.
I'm just glad
We're
this is
done.
live stream. People can see the
We're
real
done.
person you are, Britton.
We're moving on.
That was...
Next item on the agenda. The jail status report. I will say that Jim Rigsby has been hired for that position, and he's coming in this week to get his physical, so we're moving on now. The jail is on schedule and on
Yeah, the original completion date and substantial completion date is still January 4, 6, one of those 2 dates. The original project budget is on, still on schedule. The current construction contingency is $671,000 still remaining. We're doing well with that. The billing is at 76% of our invoices, and the schedule is at 78%, so they're tracking very well together. We're coming down to the last 3 months, if you will, October, November, December, finishing substantial completion the first part of January. Looks like our contingencies and our contracts and what is known to be any change orders that are pending are tracking very well at this point in time.
okay.
That's all I have.
The occupancy about the courthouse, we've had another meeting last week. We had the prosecutor and John Alexander show up to talk about that. That's an ongoing situation. There's been no decisions made. We're
We didn't do anything
collecting
with that.
information.
I would like
What
to.
about the ambulance facility
What?
report, the ambulance facility report?
Some of the members of the committee couldn't be here today. They can be here at the night meeting, so they'll be here at the next meeting to give a report.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, you mentioned the courthouse annex, the occupancy, and you said no decision had been made. I spoke about this briefly, and during the ambulance thing, I believe this would be prudent to talk about now. Last night, I'd received information that Commissioner Luther had called 4-H and told him that economic development would be moving, I assume, to the annex, and it wasn't a matter of when, or not a matter of if, but when. Tim, I took that information and texted you, and you had told me there had been no decision made. So I'd just like here in the public meeting if Commissioner Luther could clarify his statement and say that no decision's been made and that was just you speaking, or maybe you guys have made a decision in the work session, which we know can't be done. I would just like some
Don't say that
clarification.
because there was no decision made in any work session.
So Commissioner Luther misspoke then, would that be accurate?
No, I think that you got about third or fourth order of conversation, so.
I can read a quote from Becky Holbert in an email this morning if you'd like, and she quotes you word for word.
I don't know how she would quote me word for
I'm
word,
just,
but that's,
you want,
let's hear it then.
Britton, I can get on here and read what she sent last night.
I think we're getting into
But
side
this is a quote, make sure
things
it's a
today.
quote though now, not
I
just
mean,
her words.
this is an issue, Tim.
It is an issue.
I'm getting phone calls
Here's-
saying, when are the commissioners moving economic development to the annex?
And Doug,
And
are you the one that made that phone call?
That's right.
Are you the one that made the phone call
Phone call to.
to Commissioner?
Yes, last night I received the same, Doug Hess, Economic Development. I received a text from Becky Holbert last night saying that she had a conversation. And I want to say, I'd have to go back, it was like 9:45 when I received the text last night. And so I texted RJ and I said, want to know if he was up because I know it was getting late. He said, yeah, what do you got? And I think I was on the phone with him less than a minute, and I said, hey, I'm hearing this, is this? And he said, Doug, don't worry about it because no decision has been made. And I literally was on the phone less than a minute with RJ, and he put that to rest, and I went back watching my TV show.
That's the reason why you didn't call me.
What's that?
That's the reason why you didn't call me. Go to the horse's mouth there.
Well, I'll be honest with you, it was late at night. I didn't know who was up, and I didn't even know what time that phone call was made apparently between you and Becky.
Well, I would suggest for both of you just to give me a call if you have a question, instead of waiting for the third, fourth, fifth, or somebody to text and whatever. I've been trying to meet with you for 6 months. You don't have time after a meeting, you don't have time to talk, you love to text, and you do a lot of
Brenton,
that.
6
but you don't
months
do
is a little
much else.
inaccurate. We had a work session for budget hearings less than 2 months ago.
Just
so
for other matters. You've not
Anyway,
had time.
I'm gonna bring us back in control.
Thank you,
Right
Doug.
now, at the present time, we've not made no decision on anything about who's going any place. Each commissioner has got their chance and their choice to voice their personal opinion, what they want, what they don't want. At the
This was
present-
assigned a few months ago. The best that we got out of it was I guess an inspection with the county prosecutor. Recommendation from Donovan was to put the prosecutor into the office and do it at that time, and then remodel after or during the event. Since that time, I've gone back and looked at the square footages of different offices throughout the county. Looked at the ones that are off-site from the courthouse and looked at the ones that are in the courthouse. I've interviewed a number of different department heads as to what their requirements are, what their needs are, why they're off-site, why they should be on-site or shouldn't be on-site, and what the conditions are and what the lease arrangements are. That is not complete yet. Still have the county surveyor to talk to yet. I talked initially with the building department, but need to have a second round with the building department. Talked with the prosecutor's office. Need to still talk with the auditor and with the clerk. But it looks like we have a number of spaces that might be able to be open. It also drives back to what we may want to do as far as scanning documents in, as to being able to possibly free up not only space in the courthouse, but space in the basement as well, and being able to archive those documents. There's a initial layout for the courthouse and for there, pending those discussions with the other individuals, and then I think I'll be ready at that point to be able to lay out, I think, a reasonable plan for being able to occupy the annex, say which departments should retain where they're at as far as off-site, and what changes we might make inside the courthouse.
At the present time, we have not made no commitment and made no decision on that. I think I made that clear to you in the text I sent you last night, and so therefore...
Well, and I'm glad you did, Tim, and I'm glad you also said it here to the public and to these department heads. That way they hear from the president that they're not moving yet and there's been no decision made as a commissioners as a whole, so I'm glad you
Right.
said that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I said that all along. And I appreciate what Britton's doing about his research. He's doing some good research on this to bring good information. So anyway, that's where we're at on that. So we did have a meeting last week, I said, on that, and two attendants from the courthouse. Next time we have another meeting on that, I assume that you was the one originally was taking care of this. If we have another meeting, can you please include everybody not only in the courthouse, but other people? I don't know if everyone's getting information about the meeting.
We can send it to every we can send it to every department head you want. It's just gonna circle back to probation having issues in their office space, and then there's just certain offices that won't move over there. If you'd like me to include everyone in the courthouse,
I think everybody ought to be included.
I can easily email everybody. That's fine.
Please do it next time. It might help a little bit. Okay, NDOT review, regional county highway.
Had a meeting, teleconference with the NDOT commissioner of the state of Indiana. The essence of that is that they believe that they can do this, but they have issues with potential conflicts of interest, primarily with their bridge programs, of where they exercise federal monies, and where they have to come to judgments as to what counties are going to be able to get that type of information, or not get the information, but to be able to process that type of information and not show a bias, if you will, or a conflict. Conflicts of interest are not illegal as long as they're stated, but there's also the optics that go along with that as well, and so they're having a little bit of a difficult time coming about that. They're supposed to, that meeting was last Friday, in 2 weeks, they're supposed to get back with a potential resolution. Apparently in Tipton County, they have a consultant that actually operates as a county engineer for them. I don't believe that that is still allowed, or that at least the counties can be reimbursed the $40,000 or $80,000 if you're combined with another county. I don't believe that's the case, but they're going to look into that and see how that was arranged.
The other thing that, to tag on that, I talked to Jim Moose again, and after covered parade, I'll be talking to him about possibly looking at sharing an engineer in that, but I'm gonna go ahead and proceed in that way if you guys think it's okay to keep in that communication. I think it's a good thing.
Definitely, we can use an engineer. I don't know that we can find one, but that'd be.
I'll continue that.
Yeah.
We need to move on to Lucas device. We approved 10.
The council, we approved 10, but the council decided to finance 10 of them. I've asked John to put together an interlocal agreement for the administration of those units while they're outside the purview of the commissioners. The county has still retained ownership of them, but there'll be a need for requirements for maintenance and training and use.
We're going to
That's
move
still
on.
pending.
Get this stuff done. Handbook Review Committee. I personally, do we need to update that every year, every 2 years, or should we leave it alone?
It does need to be updated, and I've been working on it somewhat, just ourselves, looking at some of maybe some discrepancies and stuff, and highlighting some areas that we think might need to be changed.
So you got some comment? You got
Just
some?
need to get after I would suggest after Leanne and I go through, then we could have our committee meeting, which is in the handbook of who the committee members are.
You don't have to make one then. Good.
So
It's in process.
record-handed retaining format scanning. I think there's a big issue talking about it too, but I know that alone in the bottom of this courthouse, we have a lot of old records, and I'm concerned. I'd like to see something done with them, especially if we got a flood or something, that a lot of stuff could be lost there that will never be replaced. And Britton talked about it too. I mean, each one of these offices need to have something done to help them with, am I quoting you two on this, of getting stuff from a hard file to, on a computer where it will not take up so much space, and I think it's.
I was talking with Knox County a week ago or so. They just bit the bullet and had somebody come in and they did their whole courthouse, I guess. Just had a company come in and just start going to it. It took I'm not sure they got it done in a very short period of time, but it took them quite a while, and I'm not so sure they didn't end up splitting it over 2 years, but because of cost, I think. But that's what they ended up doing. I don't know that's where we want to go with this, but we're chewing up a lot of airspace in the courthouse anyway for just storage of documents, and but they're apparently needed still.
At the meetings you've been to, have you ran into any companies that do that professionally?
Yes,
Is there a lot of them?
I've gotten some proposals as well. There's a lot of them there.
Ron Max brought this up, and I think we've got a proposal actually to do some of the bridge work in here already. That's depending on how we are going to approach this, whether we want to continue to do what Ron's proposing to do with the bridge, or whatever the documents are in their bridge and survey, whatever they are. But it's like a $6,000 bill. But if we can come to some conclusion on how we want to proceed, it might be best to do that as opposed to piecemealing different pieces together and trying to find out where we're going to keep it and where it's at.
Right.
And I think to piggyback on the comment about Ron Mack, I think over the last several months he's made comments about the commissioners needing to do something about it's a record storage commission or something like that.
Right.
I think we probably need to look at adding that to the agenda and making sure maybe there is already a board or something, I don't know, but or if there is, we need to make sure we get on that. So
I'm in support of all of it. I think all of us here would, with a nod ahead, probably think that that's something we really need to address here in the courthouse, and with the records and the storage space that's taken up. It makes a lot of sense, and if there's funding, I'd encourage each office holder to get with us and see what we can help them or work out.
Who's going to head that up, then?
The what?
Who's going to head it up?
I don't know. We just put a call out for each office holder to do an evaluation and submit something to us, what they have and what
He's
they
gonna
need.
accumulate the information now.
It sends it to us, commission, sends it to the auditor, and then we can bring it up in meeting.
Brenda?
She didn't have anything else to do today.
Not a thing.
We're to the public comment.
Tim, I have one more last thing.
Go ahead.
You asked me to bring it up during the meeting. The courthouse security for the last year has talked about wanting to tint the east and west windows due to the sunlight, and when people are coming in, it don't look very safe. They've reached out to me. They've sent 2 quotes. There's money in the courthouse budget and multiple places to go ahead and tint the windows. I just wanted to bring that before both of you today, see if there's any objections. If not, they're going to go ahead and call. Sheriff Phelps had called me and said that he thinks it's a very prudent thing to do for security. So if there's no objections, we'd like to get that ordered this week and let them get that.
That's the problem, is when they look out from their desk, look out that way in the light, they can't even tell who it is
Yeah.
coming through the door.
And I think they talked about including the north door as well, because everyone, they use all 3, but for the public, it's mainly the west. But they didn't just want to tint one window, they wanted to make it uniform across.
Is this just the first floor or all 3 floors?
Just the
Just the entrance doors.
The entrance doors.
Not the windows.
So the security, I guess there's certain times of the day, they can't hardly tell who's coming in, if they have a weapon, you know, if whatever the case may be. So there's no objections, I'll tell them to go ahead and move forward on that.
Yeah, no problem with it. You okay, Britt?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay, public comment. I want to say one thing. We had the Saturday, I believe it was the bridge, Park County, and the trail from Vermillion County was opened, dedicated, and it was a nice event. A lot of people done a lot of hard work from both counties, and I think it's big. One of the big things is it was 2 counties coming together, and I think anything we can do to further that relationship with Park County, our neighbor, is positive. So it was a great event, and thank you all who did attend. So, anybody got any open business?
One thing, we had a holiday committee that, and I think Penny was on it, but I don't remember who else was on that committee. But it's probably the time for them to, if we're going to do anything with it, to start doing something with it. I'll get with Penny on it and see where that stands. I think she was on it anyway, that's what I recall. Leanne, okay.
Okay, open comment. The mic's up here if someone wants to speak. Okay, anybody got a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second the motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I sent you guys and Brenda the code section.